Cavalier faithful, it is 2/3 of your Cavs encapsulated crew. Logan is working late tonight. He sends his hello to the viewers. We are back post 2022 NBA draft to talk about Ochai Agbaji, the number 14th overall pick in this year's draft, selected by the Cleveland Cavaliers, Kobe Altman and company, taking the Kansas Jayhawk in the first round. Before we get started, we're going to have a link in the description. If you're as high on Agbaji as Justin is, which we'll get into, sign up with our link for BetUS, put in our promo code, join 125, and bet on him to be Rookie of the Year. It's going to be a long shot, but hey, if you're feeling confident about him, if you followed him in college, go ahead and do it. Use our promo code. Help us out. Make sure you like the video too. Justin, how's it going? Let's talk Agbaji. Let's talk how excited you are.
Yeah, so obviously we were going into this draft, and it was probably one of those drafts where we didn't put a lot of time and effort into scouting and doing a whole lot like we have done in prior drafts and for prior sports. And, you know, going into it, I did have like one or two names picked out, and I certainly had seen a lot of, you know, Twitter posts and whatnot about a whole slew of prospects. And Ochai was definitely one of those guys, and I think you could tell right away that the one big thing with him was that he was probably one of the most NBA-ready guys. He kind of has that low floor, but also, high floor, low ceiling type guy, but you know what you're getting from him, and he's an instant, you know, insert and play contributor guy. So I think, you know, Jeff, you were saying a lot of that before the draft is like, do we really want to go out and get a guy that I was talking about who might be more of a project that we have to try to develop with all these other young guys that we have? Or should we go out and get that guy that can come in and contribute right away? And, you know, on one hand, we got what you wanted. And after watching a lot more of Ochai, I'm actually very, very happy with him. And Jeff alluded to it earlier. I think he has a real shot at being the starting two guard by the time the season starts. And
you have a little bet on that. If he is, you'll be ordering the jersey.
I will be buying the jersey number 30. He's keeping the number he won the national championship in. So, you know, not a huge fan of 30 just because of Steph, but you know, I was telling Jeff before we got on, he's got some Steph Curry confidence in his 3 game. Watching the highlights, watching him go pull up from wherever, whenever, fast breaks in the middle of a set, 2 guys on him, whatever the case. He was confident. He was shooting the ball very well for, you know, his final year in college. And each year, the really great thing about him is if you go back and you look year by year by year by year, he improved. He improved, and that's the biggest thing. Obviously, young guys do that. Guys come out of college and they start off a little slow and they get better and better and better. This guy is already kind of there, and maybe he'll improve. Maybe he'll, you know, who knows? But I'm very excited for what Ochai can bring. Jeff, I wanna keep talking about what I think he can bring, but what are your thoughts on it?
Well, now that you've just said that, I've kind of reshifted my thoughts because he's a 4-year player, which is out of the norm for what Altman has been doing. And I understand that he wanted someone who might have been more league ready. I actually don't mind that strategy, but it's a little bit different. And what's going to be interesting about it is all of these lottery picks that we've had, we've almost been expecting for them to come in instant impact. Sexton, Garland, Okoro, and then, you know, Mobley, we didn't expect him to come in and, well, I think he exceeded expectations even a little bit last year, but he didn't even really need to be that good. But now we're at the point where if this is even if he's not the starting 2 guard, which you think he will be, if he's a bench piece who we're not like putting a lot of stock into, we're not putting a lot of, you know, weight on his shoulders, he's not going to have the ball in his hands, you know, you would think in key spots of games early on in the season, that could be really good for him. That could make the pick at 14 look, you know, high value. Because that's just how some of these franchises do it. You know, obviously the Warriors last season were a huge exception, but they take Kuminga and Moses Moody, and Kuminga looks really good because he gets to his spots and he looks like a good supplemental piece off the bench. And with all their personnel, they don't ask him to do a whole lot, and then they could utilize him in the playoffs all the way to a finals run. Gets a ring in his first year, so there's definitely some interesting points about that. I'm still not sold that we should have drafted all 4 players. At least I know that. I'm going to keep an open mind about Agbaji. I think that he could give you some 3-point shooting. I do like that he's 6'5". He's the Okoro build, and 5.1 total rebounds a game in college. I would love to see that number continue. We need the rebounding. Lowry's not much of a rebounder. We know Kevin Love could get rebounds, but besides that, coming off the bench, it's really kind of thin on the back end. And there were some games last year where we got out rebounded. So I want him to carry that over for sure.
Yeah, his game it's interesting because when you go and you look at the player profile or whatever they came up with for scouting him, they call him the traditional 3-and-D wing.
Mm-hmm.
I don't know about his defense. He's got some freak athleticism. I mean, Jeff, if you watch the same highlights as I did, you'll notice that there are at least 5 to 10 clips of him doing this sideline cut for an alley-oop dunk.
Mm-hmm.
He did it. It's like a drawn-up play, and it's just like he
looks good on cuts in general. V cuts,
right.
He looks good off the pick and roll. His flow in the mid range, which this is all if it transfers to the big leagues.
Right.
It looks better. It looks really good. Okoro's been in the league 2 years. His flow in the mid range is non-existent. There's nothing there. He's a spot-up shooter. Agbaji's coming off a screen. He's there. He jump step, pull up a lot.
Yep. Yeah, he's got a very refined shooting form, and I mean, it's one of the prettiest I've seen. But like the athleticism is actually ridiculous. I think he has a wingspan of like a 6'10", something like that. It's pretty, in terms of the defense. Like I was trying to get at, I don't know. You don't really see a whole lot of defensive clips. Unless you're Isaac Okoro coming out of college. It's more about the offense and trying to emphasize, hey, this guy can get you buckets and whatnot. But I really think that, when you're talking about this team and the composition of this team, there were so many times before we traded for Caris LeVert where, the starting lineup was Darius Garland, Isaac Okoro, Lauri Markkanen, Evan Mobley, and Jared Allen. And Garland would be the primary ball handler, and he would drive in, and everyone else would be occupied with actually staying on their man, covering their man pretty tightly, except for Isaac Okoro on the offensive side of the ball. Mm-hmm. I mean, he was just being left open in the corners to shoot threes and everything.
Yep.
This is in, I bring up Caris because obviously it's going to be him or Agbaji. I don't think it's going to be anyone else starting at the 2 for right now. Obviously, we're going to have free agency tomorrow. Obviously, things are already kicking off today.
Great.
And we'll absolutely try to talk about that as soon as possible. But like I said, if you can have a guy like Agbaji start and then bring Caris off the bench to either relieve Garland or relieve Agbaji, get him in early. Obviously, Caris has still got to play upwards of 25 minutes, I think, is what the realistic expectation is right now with what the composition of the roster is. But Agbaji might come in, and outside of Kevin Love, he might be our, best 3-point shooter, like the person who can actually knock down the threes the most.
Maybe
on his spots is what I'm thinking.
Mm-hmm.
Obviously, Garland will probably Garland will take his shots. I hope that that part of his game also improves and that he can be more consistent in knocking them down for the amount that he takes. But I still think it's going to be Garland, Agbaji, and K-Love who are going to be like our most consistent 3-point shooters.
Yep. Can't expect
maybe
a whole lot from
as
Jetty.
well.
Yeah, Lowry's a good 3-point shooter. Jetty is to the wind. He's here.
He might not, depending on how free agency goes, he might not be here.
He could be on the move. We ran a poll the other day about Dylan Windler being on the roster, which was a resounding no from the Twitter public, which is actually, I think, the Twitter public knowing their basketball on that one. I could throw that up on the screen. If you guys don't follow us, at Pulse Cleveland on Twitter, we had some good engagement there. I do like that point though, because now no one is, it's an off season to grind for everybody. LeVert isn't coming in. Especially if you move Sexton or if you move LeVert, it's like Sexton, is he guaranteed to be the 2 if LeVert goes? I don't know. You're going to have to, especially him coming off the injury, you're going to have to work for it with this guy being a lottery pick. And LeVert's the same way. You get rid of Sexton. Now, I don't love LeVert off the bench, But in a world where, you know, the best 5 players start, I mean, the best 5 players start. And even as far as what we saw last year, I don't think Garland and LeVert, it wasn't great last year on the court together. So if you want to bring whoever the backup point guard is with LeVert off the bench to replace Garland and Agbaji, let's say it's Rubio. That's looking pretty good. That's looking pretty solid as far as them and Love. That's pretty solid at first 8. If Abaji's, you know, pretty consistent with the numbers, obviously you have Mobley taking a jump, and Garland's only going to get better. So, yeah.
The one big thing that you're making a point on is, you know, guys coming off the bench to take over for Garland. This is my thing for Caris. Caris is probably the second most competent on the team with handling the ball, because you look at Garland, obviously number 1. Obviously, Evan is going to develop, but he's still that power forward center make. He's a great player. I'm not knocking him in any ways, but he's a power forward center. I'm sure he'll get better, but in terms of being a guard and actually having guards like, oh my God, I was going to say guards guard you, but you know, in terms of matching up and being guarded, you know, Caris is the second person I'd go to and think, hey, he could probably get past someone. I'm not trusting Isaac to take it at the top of the.
He needs a playoff ball.
Yeah, and even then, that's not a good situation for us in terms of offense. And then Agbaji, the big knock on him is he's not the best ball handler. He doesn't have like next level ball handling, but I don't need that out of him. I need him to shoot the 3 ball on and clip it every time. But you know, that's just my thoughts. That's the one thing that I think is going to be something to watch with this team. It's just we watch Garland hold the ball a lot. He obviously was able to get people involved, but you know, after that, we watched Rubio go down. We watched Sexton go down. We tried to bring Rondo in. We tried to bring Caris in. Caris obviously did a way better job than Rondo did. And then at that point, we had Brandon Goodwin, and you know that obviously he's gone now, and that's that. But we're definitely going to need another ball handler. But I don't think that's going to be Agbaji, and I don't think that's why he would be, you know, in the starting lineup. I think he'd be there to clip the 3, and that's about it. 3 and D.
Yeah, to use the 6'5", 210 pounds to. I mean, he could even guard the. I mean, that's just kind of the confusion, is especially that happened last year. Like, who's Lowry guarding? Sometimes it's like, oh, he's guarding a 3. It's a total mismatch. But kind of getting around to wrapping up here. I think there's a couple of things, and obviously we're going to be following through free agency. So if you're still here, hit that subscribe button, hit the bell notification. We're going to be here. Even if it's just a combination of us, if it's just Justin, if it's just me, if it's just Logan, if it's Justin and Logan, we'll be here. But I don't see a universe where Sexton, LeVert, Okoro, and Agbaji are all on the roster. And if that's the case, it's going to be a very interesting up until December.
First half of the season, God, leading up to the trade deadline, that's going to be that could be hell. We could be looking at we could be having a situation where Jeff and I go into the season thinking high hopes like we did with the Browns, and then boom, like people will get so high off of potentially Colin Sexton coming back and being like, oh my God, we have all these such young players that are still like developing and whatnot. Guys, composition is key. I mean,
we'll get to our expectation video as well. We'll get all 3 of us on here. Expectation video. We try to do it every preseason, but it's different this year. I think it took the NBA about 40 games to really realize the Cavs were legit. This year, every day out of the gate, they're going to be taking us seriously 100%. So different season.
No more underdog mentality. You gotta have it, but you're no longer perceived as the underdog.
Correct.
Like a team like Detroit might be believed like that. So
correct.
It's got to be instilled, and hopefully it is, and hopefully guys like Garland, Allen, Mobley are leading the charge on that. So.
Yep, definitely. That's the name of the game right there. You hit it right on the head. Cavalier faithful, if you enjoyed this, if you're excited for Ochai Agbaji, make sure you comment down below. Let us know what you guys want us to talk about maybe next. Did you follow him in college? Did you follow the Jayhawks last year? NCAA champion, 2021, 2022, Big 12 player of the year. That's back-to-back years. I believe we've drafted a conference player of the year. I believe Mobley was the Pac-12 player of the year. So good on Altman there, I guess. But that's it for us tonight. this morning, whenever you're watching us, and make sure that you guys stay tuned for more content in the future. Peace.